So what's the first thing that we should do? Yeah, it's destroyed. Okay, we want to move 2x. How do we move 2x? Good, negative 2x. So I should have 4y equals, what do I put first?
Negative 2x.
Good. Negative 2x plus 8. What's next?
Divide by 4.
Divide by 4. How many times am I going to write divide by 4? 3 times. Good job. Now, we want to simplify everything in simplest form because it makes graphing easier. So 4, what about negative 2 divided by 4? What does that become in a fraction? Negative 1/2. Good. Plus what? 2. Do we all know how to type those fractions in the calculator and simplify them? Do I need to do any example of that? Remember, you type each one, each individual. So you've got the negative 2 over 4 and the 8 over 4. Each one goes into the calculator. So now that it's in y equals, what is our next step? Okay, how do I graph it? What's step 2? So what should I graph first? The 2, good. So step 2 in this case is graph the y-intercept. Graph the y-intercept. So the y-intercept in this case is 2. So it's plus 2, which means I go on the y-axis and up 2. 1, 2. So first thing you got to do is solve for y. If it's already solved for y, you're in luck. That's a good thing. Then what do we do? Okay, so we're going to graph slope. Where do I start to graph the slope? So where do I graph the slope at? Where do I start? Do I just start wherever I want to? Like, what point do I have to start with when I graph slope? The 2. Okay, so what is our slope? Negative 1 over 2. Remember, we're going to write change in y over change in x as a reminder to ourselves of what graphing slope does. The more you write change in y over change in x, you will go the correct direction if you write it. So in words, what does that mean? Okay, down 1. And when you say over, what direction do you mean? To the right? Good. Right 2. Taking the time to write it down will help you make less mistakes. So from the y-intercept, we're going to go down 1 and to the right 2. So we're going to graph slope. This is our slope. From here, we go down 1, 2, or down 1, right 2. 1. All right, we got our 2 points. What should we do with those 2 points?
Make a line.
Make a line. We're going to connect them. Good. So step 4, connect the dots. Remember to put 2 arrows because the arrows show infinite direction. And when you're dealing with when you're dealing with lines are infinite in opposite directions. So you want to make sure you're putting the arrows. All right, so some things we want to remember. Okay, we want to remember we can only graph slope-intercept form if it's in y equals mx plus b. So remember, y equals mx plus b. It has to be in that format to graph it. Y equals mx plus b, it's slope-intercept form. If it's not in y equals mx plus b, what do we do? How do we get the line in y equals mx plus b? We solve for y. If it's not solved for y, you have to do that. If it is, you can just graph it and you're good. If it's not, you have to do it, okay? So let's move on to a practice problem real quick. On page 4, I want to make sure that we know how to do something if it's y equals or x equals. So it's not necessarily on this note. We will cover that a little bit later. But let's go ahead and talk about number 6 on page 4. So number 6 says y equals 4. Y equals 4. That is not in y equals, there it goes. That is not y equals mx plus b form. Not at all. But you can still graph it. If it is y equals a number, y equals any kind of number, so any number, that line is going to be horizontal. So if it's y equals a number, it's horizontal. Okay. What that means is you go on the y-axis to whatever y equals. So on the y-axis, we're going to go up how many? To 4. So whatever this number is, this is kind of like the y-intercept. What this means is the only value you'll ever get is y equals 4. It doesn't matter what x value you
Go
have.
up 4.
What? What?
Will we go up 4?
Yes, you go up 4.
Okay.
Okay. So you go up 4, and then we're just going to draw a horizontal line. So if it's y equals a number, you always go left to right. It's parallel to the x-axis, meaning they'll never cross each other.
Are you gonna make us make the lines in the graphic in this thing too?
Your assignments will be done on, you need to take the notes, like try your best to do it on paper. But when we do practice, you guys are going to practice on IXL. So it's a little easier to graph. So do your best with the notes. And then your practice, I'll give you a code to do to make it just easier on you. All right, so y equals a number left to right. Let's go over to number 8 on page 5. So number 8 on page 5 is x equals 5. We would go on the x-axis, but we don't go up or down because up or down is a y-axis idea. So we would go which directions? What do you mean when you say straight? So where would we go if x equals 5? I would go to the right to what number? 5. Good job. Yeah. Oh, wrong problem. There you go. All right, so we go to the right, 5. So if y equals a number goes left to right, how do we think x equals a number goes? Up and down. Good job. So if it's x equals any kind of number, you find that number here, put a dot, and then you go up or down, up to down, like this. It's hard to hear underneath all the masks. Okay, fine. You have all year to answer questions, I promise. So we go up and down. Now, x equals a number is parallel to the y-axis, meaning the y-axis and the x equals a number will have the same slope and they will never cross. Okay. All right, we ready for some practice? Okay, so go ahead and go back to page 4 and start